Hello, my name is Nigel Jones. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director of the Practice Plan Group, and welcome to this latest of today's series of webinars, which is entitled How to Replace Your NHS Pension and Benefits When Going Private. And I'm very pleased to say I've been joined today by two members of the Wesleyan team, Wilf Moralee and Michael Copeland. Welcome, Wilf and Michael. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Hi, Nigel. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much. Yeah, looking forward to this discussion because this is a really important part of the considerations, I think, when dentists are thinking about leaving the NHS and going private. I mean, there's an awful lot of things that they have to think about, and this is quite a technical area. So I'm very appreciative of the fact that the two of you have been able to give up your time, because I know both of you have a huge amount of technical knowledge and expertise and experience in guiding dentists when it comes to factors around their NHS pension and retirement planning in general, really. So thank you so much for being here today. I should just say that because of the sort of technical nature of things, we are able to take questions during the course of the webinar, which I'll do my best to weave into the discussion, but we'll make sure we've left time at the end to pose those questions to Michael and Wilf. Those questions will be anonymous, so don't feel inhibited from asking anything that's specific to your circumstances. Just pop them in the question box, and I'll make sure that I ask Wilf and Michael what I can during the course of the time that we've got available. We're due to finish at 12:55 today, so please feel free as we go through this to ask any questions. So I mentioned about the fact that it's one of the important considerations for dentists when leaving the NHS. I mean, there's many reasons why people make that step. I mean, I've during the course of my career helped literally hundreds of dentists make that step, and they do it for a variety of reasons. Sometimes, probably most of the time, to be honest with you, the priority is delivering the best patient care they want to. There are considerations around work-life balance. There can be considerations around professional satisfaction. And then inevitably, there's an element of personal finances and what it will mean for them, both in the here and now, but also towards the end of their career. And that's, I think, where the NHS pension and the associated benefits fit in. And I think it's interesting. One of the things that I'm fairly certain we will have established during the course of today, that dentists don't need to feel trapped in the NHS in the current circumstances. They have a choice. If their choice is to remain within the NHS, then that's great. But if their choice is to leave the NHS, then they can take steps to do that. So I think one of the key things there is going to be, how does the NHS make its offer sufficiently attractive to keep dentists within the NHS, or even potentially attract them back into the NHS? And a key element of that, and I've heard this so many times over the 3 decades that I've been working with the profession, is the attractiveness of the NHS pension and its benefits. So I think probably a very good place to start, and I think I'll start with you, Michael, if that's okay, is just say, could you summarise what the current state of play is with regard to the NHS pension and those benefits? Yeah,
sure, Nigel. So, you know, the NHS pension scheme it's a great scheme. I won't deny it. It is a great scheme. There's guaranteed benefits in there, and you know, if you're a member of the NHS pension scheme, you are going to claim in one of 3 ways. You're either going to hopefully make it through to retirement, and you get a really good guaranteed pension that's index linked for the rest of your life. You're unfortunately going to die before you get to retirement, and so you might claim on death in service benefits, and then there's spouses or financial dependents pensions, or there's dependents pensions benefits. Or you're going to be ill and you're going to have to retire through ill health before you make it to retirement, and then therefore there's an ill health retirement element to the NHS pension scheme as well. So there's 3 key vital ways in which you are going to claim on the NHS pension scheme. Hopefully we want everybody to make it through to retirement and they take their NHS pension and they have a really nice, you know, rest of their life. But we do understand and know that a lot of dentists are either ill or unfortunately they do die. So that's the core element. The core element is the pension scheme itself, but then there's so many other benefits as well that kind of weave into the pension scheme. As I said, there's, if you've got a spouse or a partner Then there's spouses or partner pension benefits after you've died. There's dependents pension. So if you've got children who are 23 or under, then they potentially can benefit from a dependents pension. There's things like sick pay. So an integral part of being a member of the NHS pension scheme and doing NHS work is that there's an element of sick pay that you get from week 5 to week 26. So there's a number of benefits that are built into the scheme. And what's unique about the scheme for dentists is that dentists are self-employed individuals who still have access to what is essentially an occupational pension scheme, so an employed pension scheme. So it's a really, really great scheme, in my opinion.
So given that it's a great scheme and there's that basket of benefits, Wilf, what are the sort of financial considerations that a dentist has to consider when making that move or considering that move from moving from the NHS to private?
Yep, so I mean, pension schemes aside, there's just the general considerations of running the business. And the thing that I would say first is you've probably done the hardest work, I would argue with you, is you've built up a practice, you've built up a really good patient base, you've hired the right staff and you've trained them and you've managed them well and you've grew your business, much to the point that you're now thinking about moving from the NHS contract to private dentistry. But there's still some considerations to make in with that, such as how will your income ebb and flow now that you don't have the sort of the stability of the NHS contract payments coming in each month. And one of the other key considerations really is, do you have enough patients or will you have enough patients to see you break even and still make the same profit in doing the work that you want to do? Because I think the key one that you mentioned before, Nigel, is talking about that professional, that work-life balance, but also that professional balance of treating your patients the way that you want to treat them. So it's making sure that you can give your patients that time, yet still make enough money to obviously pay the bills and do what you want to do. I think the one last financial consideration, just to jump on that as well with the pension, the NHS is just such a fantastic scheme. We can't argue with that. And all of Michael's points that he made there were absolutely spot on. But the biggest consideration really is, as good as the scheme is, what good is it to you if you're not going to be there to enjoy it when you get there, because you're just so frazzled out by breaking your back to meet the NHS targets. So it's that trying to find the balance in life, really.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, Michael.
And I was going to say, Nigel, sorry, I think to add on to that as well, I think there's a misconception that if I leave the NHS and I go private, that I've lost my pension scheme. You haven't lost your pension scheme. Everything that you've built up and accrued is there. It's safe. It will still sit there. It's still a pot. And that will always be there. Yes, you'll lose certain benefits, like you won't get the additional dynamisation that you enjoy as an active member. So active members get dynamisation every year. Currently it's set at CPI plus 1.5%. CPI can be changed to whatever the scheme wants it to be, but at the moment it's CPI plus 1.5%. So you lose that extra 1.5% dynamisation, but everything that you've got in your pot, Nigel, is secure. So when dentists are thinking, oh, if I go from the NHS into private, I've got to start my pension planning all over again. No, you don't. You just need a proper plan to build on what you've already got in place, and what you've already got in place is secure and always will it be. So I think that's important that dentists kind of understand the position with regards to what does happen to my pension if I leave.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, and that links to my follow-up question for you, Wilf, which is that you mentioned about the importance of being clear on the income that you'll generate in a private setting, and part of your income target must be to do with how you compensate for whatever erosion of benefits that you will have given up by leaving. So I think Michael's point's a really important one, that there's something that's already there and safe and secure, but you need to plan to compensate for whatever remains in your career and what that means. So how easy is it to replace those benefits? And are there things like tax efficient ways of thinking about doing that?
Yeah, I suppose it depends on which ways you're looking to replace it. So I first talked about the NHS contract and having those fixed monthly payments, and that's where having a patient plan in place can help replace that sort of consistency of income. But talking more specifically about the NHS pension benefits, such as, Michael talked about the additional retirement income, the death benefits for the family if you do unfortunately pass away, or the sick benefits that are available. There are certainly ways and means of doing that. So I don't want to get into too much detail for today, but just to give you a few examples, is if we're looking to replace the pension, that can be done in some way, shape or form through a personal pension. But if you're an incorporated dentist, which most people tend to do when, even as a principal in the NHS, but definitely when they move into private practice, you can then pay that pension through the company. So the company actually pays for the pension scheme. And by doing that, you're probably saving 19% corporation tax and saving around 32 or 38% of dividend tax. So there's a good 40 to 50% saving by putting the pension scheme through the company. We can also do something similar with the life cover. And what we can do is something called a relevant life plan. And again, it's just set up in a very special way there. The company pays the premiums. And again, the premium saving is around 40 to 50% because essentially the taxman's paying that part of the premium for you. So some really good savings. The only one that isn't quite as tax efficient is really the sick pay. So, in England and Wales, we're talking about sick pay being very good. You get your pensionable pay between weeks 4 and 26, as Michael said. Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's not quite as good because it's limited to 25%. There's a little bit of a cap in place there as well. But paying for those benefits through the company, we don't really see that as a massive tax break because you end up having to pay tax when you get the income protection coming in. You get your salary coming in sickness, but you don't always guarantee to get the tax break for paying the premiums. So we sort of looked at and gone, for that one, you might as well just pay that out your bank account. But indeed, if you have moved away from that NHS contract, I know many of our dentists have this cover in place already, it's really key that you just sit down and review that still, because you've completely changed the parameters of your business and therefore the cover may not well be suitable, and you just want to tweak that as well. I think just to sort of close up with that, Nigel, the biggest thing that I would say is it's just really important to sit down with somebody and really understand what it is you want. And that's the key to it, is because you might not want all of the benefits that the NHS pension scheme give you. You might not need them all. So it's really just sitting down and really understanding what it is rather than just blindly going out and replacing just for the sake of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was smiling when you said you need to sit down with someone, because I was sort of listening to your quite technical answer on that, which I know you probably dumbed it down for my benefit anyway, and thinking I am so glad there are people like you and Michael around, because I quite often find I don't have the time, let alone the inclination, to understand the intricacies of these things. So your observation about the importance of sitting down with someone, I think, is absolutely true. But also, I guess that the issue is that it is very different for different people. They'll have different priorities. They'll be in different financial circumstances. My guess is, Michael, you've come across that huge variety during the course of your career.
Oh, absolutely, Nigel. I joined Wesley. I joined Medical Sickness Society. That's how old I am. So, I go back to the old Medical Sickness Society days. And to pick up Will's point on incorporation, and a lot of dentists have incorporated. And let's be honest, we know that most dentists incorporate to save tax. Let's not be embarrassed about that or in any way shy about that. The main reason is to save on tax. But what they then don't do, Nigel, and perhaps it's because it's just a lack of understanding, and that's why people like we have people like me and Wilf in the business, is to explore all the other ways in which you can use an incorporated company, as Wilf said, to pay for things like relevant life, to pay for things like employer funded pensions, to suggest to people that perhaps they could have a spouse or a partner that's got some Class B shares in the business, so we can look at other ways to distribute dividend income, to look at things like, could we do some corporate investing that could then be used as part of an exit strategy, and also a way to replace lost pension income. And I've seen every kind of scenario, Nigel, from your old sole trader working out of a terraced house in the middle of Rochdale, up to I've done work with some of the bigger corporates, and all parts in between, really. We deal with practices, with profit sharing practices, with expense sharing practices, with corporates. it's so we understand it, we get it, but to pick up on Will's point around incorporation, make sure that you are fully utilizing everything that you and your business can do, because there's so much more that an incorporated dental practice can do than just save tax, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does entirely, and I think you're right about the need to have that rounded view of all of the potential upsides of incorporation. And I would say, I mean, my perception is that things change and things move, which is another reason why it's helpful to sit down with someone that stays on top of the changes. And one of the very topical changes lately has been McLeod. And I just wondered what your take was on the McLeod situation and what we need to think about in respect of that.
So McLeod, yeah, so that kicked up some dust, didn't it, McLeod? So for anybody watching, they might not be aware that when the scheme went from the old legacy scheme to the 2015 scheme, there was kind of this transitional period where people transitioned across from the old scheme to the new scheme dependent upon age. The challenge around that was that was age discriminatory, and that was found to be right. So they're going through the whole process of unpicking this now. They were looking at a couple of options, Nigel, in regards to how do we fix this. And what they've settled on is that they've settled on what they've called a deferred choice underpin, which is really just a fancy way of saying we've kind of kicked the can down the road, so that you don't need to make the decision on what you do until you decide to take your pension scheme benefits. So what it essentially means is, if you were transitioned into the scheme, what they're going to do, they're going to put all that membership from April 2015 through to April 2022. That's all going to be popped back into your old legacy scheme. Now, if you're in one of the old legacy schemes, you can either be in the 1995 scheme or the 2008 scheme. You can't be in both. You're in one or the other. So any accrual that you've had in the 2015 scheme is going to get popped back into there for now, because it's generally deemed that that's where you get the biggest bang for your buck. And then they've said we'll take the deferred choice underpin. So what we're going to do, we're going to give you the option when you retire and take benefits to say, for that remedy period, as it's being called, do you want that membership to count as if it was in the legacy scheme, or do you want it to count as if it was in the 2015 scheme? And then the reason why the 1st of April 2022 is a key date is because from that date, every dentist that's in the NHS will become a member of the 2015 scheme, regardless of age. So that takes away the age discrimination. For anybody who has retired before that date, or at any point during this remedy period, and you might have retired and taken some benefits from the legacy scheme and some benefits from the new scheme, they're looking at everything, Nigel. So they're looking at, what would be the best position for those who have retired. They're looking at things like, have we broken any kind of enhanced fixed or primary protections? They're looking at, have we created any unnecessary or any additional annual or lifetime allowance tax charges? They're looking at the whole thing. I heard a figure the other day that somebody said that they've earmarked about £19 billion, I believe, to remedy what this age discrimination judgment, what the McLeod judgment has created. So, but key for all dentists watching is, don't panic. We're kind of in this period now where nothing's going to happen until April 2022. So don't panic. They're then looking at, you don't need to make a decision until you actually take scheme benefits. But, all of our guys that we've got out there in the field advising dentists fully up to speed with McLeod, they can do some fairly sexy calculations for you to kind of show you what the implications of McLeod is on your pension scheme, so that you can make a much more informed choice and decision of, how does that affect me, and what's my best option going forward. So it has kicked up a bit of a cloud, if you'll pardon the pun, but you can let the dust settle a little bit now, wait until next year, let the dust settle, and then, as I said, you don't need to make a decision on what you do until you actually take your benefits.
Yeah. I think there's just a couple of interesting points I'll add to that, if you don't mind, Nigel. It's always good to get a benefit out there. So on this moving back, the 7 years being put back into the legacy scheme, as Michael said, those values, as far as HMRC are concerned, tend to be valued less than what they were in the 2015 scheme. And the good news is with that is any dentists that have faced an annual allowance tax bill from their 2015 scheme over the last few years might actually find that that tax bill gets reduced or even fully refunded. So it's just keeping an eye out. Again, it's nothing to do, you don't do anything now. It'll come out in the wash in due course. But if you sort of sat and you've been using scheme pays or you've got some tax bills there, it might be something that works out. The other key thing I would say is we are still very much still trying to ratify the 1920 annual allowance tax bill right now. So anybody that was facing a tax bill from the 2019-20 tax year, you've only got 29 days to get your scheme pays application in. And even though that tax bill might disappear once this whole McLeod, sorts itself out, you still have to go through the motion of putting that through and getting the application in there. So don't waste any time in getting that application. And for those dentists that are obviously in England and Wales, you've still got the compensation scheme available through the NHS. So when you are putting in that scheme pays form, make sure you're filling in the compensation scheme application as well. Otherwise, you're just chucking money away. And if you're unsure on any of that, speak to one of our, our guys, and we'll sort it out.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. I'm sort of listening to the two of you. I'm struck by the use of terms like legacy schemes and 1995, 2008, 2015. The NHS pension, as we said right at the start, is great. It's always had a great reputation. How has it changed in terms of how good it is, and what's your sense of where it's heading going forward? Well, if we try and extrapolate a few years, I mean, for those dentists that may be deciding to stay within the NHS, how do you think they might be affected as the years pass by? Michael, would you like to have a stab?
As the elder of me and Wilf, I'd probably go back a little bit further. So, I mean, the more mature dentists who are watching today will remember, the 1995 scheme, the legacy scheme. Regardless of how much income you earned, Nigel, it had a flat 6% contribution level. So it didn't matter whether you were earning 20,000 a year superannuable or 120,000 pounds per year superannuable. It was just a flat 6%. And the scheme used to add another 14% on top of that, and it had a scheme retirement age of 60. So, and on top of that, if you'd accrued a pension, let's say, and it's not uncommon for dentists to accrue pensions of 50, 60, 70,000 pounds a year. If you've got a pension of £50,000 a year, you also got a tax-free lump sum of another £150,000. Jump forward then to the 2015 scheme. We've now got a scheme that's got a tiered contribution level with a maximum contribution level at 14.3%. So, for somebody earning over £111,000 now, you're paying 14.3% of your income where you used to pay 6%. So the cost of it has gone up significantly. Allied to that now is you're not taking scheme benefits at 60 without taking some fairly punitive actuarial reductions, because the scheme retirement age now is aligned to state retirement age, to your normal state retirement age. And I know that when they launched the 2015 scheme, they said there'd be no more significant changes for 25 years, so through to 2040. What they didn't tell you is what a significant change is. So they could change things like they could change the CPI figure, they could change the rate at which it gets dynamized. Absolutely, the retirement age can, and in my opinion, will move, Nigel, because we're still in the grip of a horrible pandemic. It's cost the country billions and billions of pounds. That's got to be paid for somehow, and one of the ways I think that's going to get paid for is normal retirement age will get extended. I would not be surprised to see the normal retirement age get extended out into people's early 70s. So when I say locked in, so you're locked into a pension scheme there that where you're probably not going to be able to take benefits until you're kind of in your early 70s, or if you do want to access it earlier, there's going to be some quite punitive actuarial reductions on there. So for me, I can only see it getting more expensive. I can't see it getting any cheaper because it's a hugely expensive scheme to maintain. The premiums that or the contributions that you make this month literally are paying next month's pensions. There's no pot, it's literally in and out. And I can only see dentists having to work longer and longer and longer and longer for their normal retirement age. So more expensive, working longer, and as Will said earlier, that comes back then to quality of life and enjoying retirement and all that kind of thing. So that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'll come to you, Wilf. I mean, I know that that headline sounds quite comforting, no significant changes. But as Michael's just sort of said, that potentially masks a lot more flexibility that the government's got than might first meet the eye.
Yeah. Just for my benefit, I would extend on the retirement ages. Completely agree with Michael, and we're already seeing the legislation come through that is going to increase the minimum retirement ages for everybody. This isn't just the NHS pension. So right now, to retire, you need to be 55 years of age. We are seeing legislation that's going to come in line with the next state pension rise, so around 2028, where that minimum retirement age is going to rise to 57, and then it's going to be tied to the state retirement age. So even with actuarial reductions, or even with that sort of planning, you've got to bear in mind that with life expectancy, mortality rates and everything like that, a foundation dentist sort of just coming out of university now might be looking at a standard retirement age, a state retirement age of 71 or 72, and this is before we see any additional rises because of the COVID situation. So it's really saying your minimum retirement age then would be 61, 62 years of age. So it's just really key to sort of sit down and understand what is it you want to do, when is it you want to go, and therefore what is the best way of helping you achieve that.
Yeah.
There's some absolutely key planning in with that bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because I think the gist of what we've just been hearing is that it's undeniably still a great scheme. It's maybe less great than it was in its earlier incarnations. So there's a sort of trajectory here that people need to pay attention to if that's their main kind of consideration in terms of that NHS to private move. Actually, will it remain as attractive going forward? And if you are one of those dental students or foundation year dentists, actually, what does your career look like? And if you're pinning too much hope on the NHS pension, just be wary and get some advice about that.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because I mean, it feels from the earlier discussion that yes, you can safeguard what you've got. You can then look to introduce new benefits and different pension arrangements, all of that kind of thing, to help put you on an even keel with that, but at a cost. What would you say is the single, in respect to this topic, the most important advice you would give to someone that's thinking about leaving the NHS or diluting their NHS income as part of a move to private?
Do you want to go first, Wilf?
I'll jump in. I've got one extra little point just on the last as well, Nigel, so this might count as two pieces of advice. Any dentists out there, principals, associates, it doesn't matter. If you've got membership in the pension scheme going back more than 15 years, so we're going back before April 2006, you've got a protected minimum retirement age of 50. And that's quite interesting because I think some of them have forgotten that, and we're having these conversations where it's, I can't wait till I'm 55 and I can get my pension and I can go part-time. And actually it's a case of you might be able to do that now. So that might be something that helps you with that choice as well. So I'm not going to count that as my one piece of advice. That was a tie on to the last one. By far, the biggest piece of advice I would give is just get the right team around you. It's really important that you have a financial consultant that understands the world of dentists, speaks your language, knows what the pension scheme is and how it affects your personal life as well as your business life, but also making sure that you've got the right accountant, the right lawyer that, again, specialises in the dental world, and making sure that you've got the right patient plan set up. So it's definitely getting the right team around you.
Okay, thank you. And Michael?
For me, Nigel, it's plan. I have a saying that a goal without a plan is just a dream. So you absolutely need to sit down, make a plan. You genuinely think about, what do you want to be in retirement? What do you see yourself doing in retirement? Where do you see yourself being in retirement? Start to think about what kind of income and what kind of capital you would need to sit behind you to drive that retirement. Don't think, I'm just going to retire at 60 because the scheme says I can retire at 60, or I'm going to retire at 65 because the scheme says I can retire at 65. Retire when you want, but plan it and stick to that plan, and make sure that you review that plan every single year. And similarly to the way I know, private dentists sit down with your guys, Nigel, and they have this proper annual business review. This should be part of that. Part of that should be, am I on track for my retirement plan? And don't always think negatively. People kind of go, oh, well, what if my investments don't do as well? Or what if my pension don't do as well? A lot of people think glass half full, but what if your pension fund is overperforming? And what if your investments are overperforming? And what if your practice value has suddenly jumped up by 20% and you hadn't kind of factored that in? What does that change? Does that mean you can actually start to bring, instead of thinking, well, I was retiring at 60, can I now retire at 58? So make a plan. Don't just dream about it. Make a plan, stick to it, and review it regularly. It would be my absolute advice.
Yeah, I think that's very wise. And I actually have a client that I was talking to 2 or 3 years ago, and we were having exactly the kind of conversation that you're alluding to. Someone that was thinking, I can't retire until I reach this age. And I remember asking about the valuation of the practice and how that factored into their retirement planning. And they hadn't had a valuation done for ages. They've now sold their practice and are very, very happy because they've been able to bring forward that retirement by quite some few years. And I think that importance of a regular review is really important. But having something at the outset. Now, I mean, one of the things you mentioned about, the work that my team do with practices, and I've been helping dentists leave the NHS and go private since 1990, when people trying to escape what was then called the new contract. And one of the things that happens is, I find it an incredibly rewarding job, because you're with people that are really quite stressed and feeling the pressure of that NHS treadmill, and that's almost been amplified at the moment, because you've got particularly in England, where you've got the UDA targets to try and achieve and avoid clawback, at the same time as a regulator that's been a little bit more fastidious, you might say. And the tension between the two is quite challenging. So you've got people that are feeling quite, I'm going to just use a word like battered, actually, by the current circumstances that they're working in. We help them move away from that, and it's so rewarding, because you rekindle their love for dentistry. They realise they didn't hate dentistry; they just were very uncomfortable with NHS dentistry. They've got better work-life balance, all of the sort of stuff that I started off this session talking about. The risk is that in the kind of euphoria of that this immense feeling of positivity, that you forget to think about actually what's going to happen at the end of my career when I come to retirement. And I can appreciate that people are going to have so much to think about in terms of the enormity of the change that they're undertaking. But I presume, and I know this is a really daft question, really, but I presume the earlier they start thinking about the detail, the better, because it'll start paying off whenever they do come to retire.
Absolutely. There's a saying that the first pound you invest is the pound that makes you the most money. At Wesleyan, we do offer a full retirement planning service, Nigel, and what we kind of do is we look at that in kind of 3 key stages. So you've got what we like to try and do is start planning with a dentist once they hit age 50, and kind of really try and understand what the retirement goals and aspirations are, and really build a plan that makes sure that we can help them to achieve those retirement aspirations. And similarly to their annual business reviews, we actively encourage that you sit down and you review those annually. Then there's kind of the bit in the middle that dentists generally tend to forget about, which is the actual process of retiring. And we like to try and hold a dentist's hand through the actual process of retiring. I think sometimes they just think about, well, what forms do I need to fill out, and where do I need to send them to, and how do I get my NHS pension, and do I want a FAD pension, or do I want an annuity pension, or do I want an UF plus pension, or what do I want? And what they actually forget sometimes is some of the physical and emotional aspects of retiring, and part of our service looks at helping them, to get their heads around some of the physical and emotional aspects of retiring. Even that detachment from your patients, some of which you've known for probably 37 years, you've treated them and the children and the children's children. And then the third element of our retirement service is then, once you have retired, it's kind of making sure that we're helping you to manage your retirement, so that hopefully it is, that brilliant retirement that you'd planned for. And we'll sit down and make sure that, do you have enough income? Is it as tax efficient as it should be? Are there certain taps that we need to be switching on or off to make sure that we're making best use of all those, tax efficiencies that we have? Are we eroding the capital that we thought we needed to underpin our retirement, or indeed are we growing that capital? What effect is that having on my estate? What effect is that having on perhaps how I want to distribute my estate to my family? So we really do, with dentists, as far as retirement planning go, we want to start the planning as early as we're possible, but then from 50 really focusing on what do you want and what you want to achieve, and then we, our ideal is to see that then through to right through to pretty much the day you die. And but absolutely, the first pound you invest is the pound that will make you the most money.
Yeah, I think it's just worth extending. There's the retirement service is absolutely fantastic, and we hold your hand through all of it. It's not just the paperwork, because it's easy enough to think, I need to, get an AW8 form and ping it off to NHS local area team sort of 4 months before. But it's not to think about the practice, 2 years beforehand, what you need to do to gear up for the sale of the practice, how do you get the best value for that practice. But in addition to the retirement service, I'd also just say that that's not all we do. We look after all aspects of financial planning for dentists. So it's your first mortgage, your second mortgage, it's getting the kids' savings put away into the best place. It's making sure you've got enough income for you and your family if you get sick, or if you have it, pass away, anything like that. So it's all aspects that we can help you with, through even to thinking about through the use of Wesleyan Bank as part of the group. If you're looking to buy a practice or buy a premise for the practice, then that's something that we can help fund with as well. So it's really anything that you need, we should be able to help you with it.
Excellent. Well, you very neatly answered one of the questions that's come in, Wilf, actually, which was, can Wesleyan help with other areas? So thank you very much for that. I'll quickly refer to some of these at the moment that have come in so far, and I'll do my best to get through all of them in the sort of 6 or 7 minutes that we have left. So some of them are going to be quite specific. So I'll read out the screen. Please, have had problems with all NHS practices paying their superannuation due. This person's a locum. Is there any help that you could provide that person, or guidance?
So the key for me is go to the Total Rewards site, get a Total Rewards statement. Once you know kind of what the current situation looks like, and you're not happy with it, then absolutely get on to PCSE, and if necessary, you need to open up a complaint with those to get this sorted out. PCSE, they're not quick. I would never say that they're quick, but usually if you keep on top of them, they will absolutely get to the bottom of it. Now, if you're struggling to do that, or you're really struggling to understand the figures, the easiest thing to do, Nigel, honestly, is to get one of the Wesleyan financial consultants to sit with you, both ring PCSE together. You give PCSE your permission to talk to one of our Wesleyan financial consultants, and we'll start digging on your behalf. because it's absolutely vital. The sooner you get this resolved, you're saving yourself hours and hours and hours of angst in the future. So that would be my my advice to that particular individual.
Yeah, I would just say as well, if you are continuing to do that locum work, it's just being really clear with the practice when you're engaging with them. What is the work that you do and how much of it is NHS work, and therefore what is the superannuation pay that's going to be agreed, and making sure that you've got that in black and white. So then, as Michael said, when you're later going back to the NHS to argue it, you've got something to say, well, this is what it should have been, and here's the written evidence to say that's what was agreed.
Okay, great. Thank you both very much. I'm not sure how quick the answer to this question will be, but I think probably quite quick. And you may have had it several times. How do I know which NHS pension scheme I'm in?
I can tell you based on your age, probably, anyway. But again, if you go to the Total Reward site, if you've never been onto the Total Reward site, go to the Total Reward site, get your Total Reward statement, and that will tell you. So it will tell you what you've accrued in what scheme you're in. So if you're in the 95 scheme and the 2015 scheme, Nigel, it will break your benefits down into those two schemes. So you'll know you're in the 95 scheme and the 2015 scheme. Or it will have your benefits broken down into the 2008 scheme and the 2015 scheme. Or for the really, really young dentists who are probably out there watching today, you know, if you joined after when we transitioned across, all of your benefits will just be in the 2015 scheme anyway. So TRS is the best place to start. If not, just ask a Wesleyan financial consultant. They'll be able to tell you pretty much based on your age. Yeah,
I think a couple of points there is one of the most complicated parts of the TRS is the dynamisation sheet. It's called. It's sort of tagged onto the back. It's easy to ignore this because it's just a lot of numbers, but please don't, because it sort of feeds in with the previous question, Nigel. That's what you've earned over the years. So if that looks wrong, we need to be feeding back to NHS to get those figures corrected, because it's going to make a massive difference. You know, one of my clients I had made a difference of about £12,000 per annum because there was missing income on that one. So it's absolutely making sure that you check that. And the other thing I would say is the total reward statement's fantastic, but what it doesn't do is tell you what you're going to have. It just tells you what you have already. So it's, you know, sit down with one of our guys and we'll help you understand what that could grow to be as well.
Okay, excellent. I'm just seeing some comments that are coming in with people saying thank you in terms of they've been putting off reviewing their pensions for too long. I think the answer to the locum question, I think that sounds like it's been causing quite a bit of stress for a number of years. So having that clarity of next step, I think is looking like it's very much appreciated. One last quick question, given the time, is it possible to defer my NHS benefits?
Wilf, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, can do. You can defer your NHS benefits at any point. So you can just walk away from the scheme, stop paying your contributions, and after 12 months, your NHS benefits will automatically become deferred. There are some downsides to doing so, so don't just treat it as a flippant decision, because it will change the life cover that you have through the scheme. It will change the sick pay benefits that you have through the scheme. And of course, you won't be accruing further pension for the future as well in that scheme. So whilst today is easy enough to do, it's not something that you want to be doing without sort of sitting down and getting some good advice on it. I would just say, obviously, by moving to 100% private dentistry, you will naturally defer out of the NHS pension scheme because you don't have any choice to stay in it. And again, it's just sitting down with one of us to make sure that we get the right benefit package put back into place for you and your business and for your family. Yeah. But yeah, you can defer out, just don't treat it lightly.
I think you're, because I'm conscious of the time, and I think that last point is a really important one, which is around getting the right benefits package in place to reflect your circumstances. So both of you have mentioned several times about getting in touch with one of the Wesleyan team. How does somebody best go about doing that?
So the best way, Nigel, is to go onto our website, www.wesleyan.co.uk. And on there, there's a find my local consultant box. You just pop in there, whether you're a dentist or a medic or a teacher, you pop your postcode in and it will give you the name, telephone number and email address of your local financial consultant. That's absolutely the easiest way to do it. yeah, I mean, you can always ring our head office and they'll be able to help you. But for me, by far the easiest way is just to go to the website.
And I should though say that I think both of you will be on the chat after this this webinar. So anyone that's got any specific questions that they're happy to ask in public, still the anonymous thing is there, or if they want to chat to you individually, they can. And I think there are other members of the Wesleyan team that will be available as well if you've got specific questions. So please use that chat function if you do want to pose those questions to Wilf and Michael. Thank you both very, very much for your time today. I think you've proven beyond any doubt, not that I think I was particularly doubtful, of the importance of getting specialist advice. And I think it's very clear that you have that capability and the wider Wesleyan team have that capability. So really, really appreciate it. You can actually book an appointment, I think, with Wesleyan through the Information Hub. So that's another route for you, as well as the website that Michael mentioned. We are, in 5 minutes' time, going to be running the webinar, which is about why there's never been a better time to leave the NHS and go private. That's at 1 o'clock. So please do stay with us and join into that. But thank you both very much indeed. Really appreciated your time. And I hope you, in the audience, enjoy the remainder of the conference. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Nigel.
Everybody, take care. Bye.